Hello, this is Dean Radin, and I'm on Your Superior Self.
Hi, I'm Anita Murjani, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hello, this is Dr. Raymond Moody, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, Cultural Creatives. I'm Bruce Lipton, and I'm here to join you with Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Paul Selig, and this is Your Superior Self.
What's up, everybody? I'm Aubrey Marcus, and this is Your Superior Self.
Christopher, thank you so much for taking the time, and I'm really excited to talk about your journey. Let's start at the beginning. I know you kind of led me in that before the interview, but let's go ahead. So your bio says that you were experiencing some pretty I don't even know what else to say, some phenomena early on in your life. So let's start there.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I realized when I was young, I used to see kind of craft in the sky, even at school, oh, there's a craft over there. Nah, it's just your imagination. And, it got worse one night. I had an Anunnaki reptilian creature, and they could be anything between 9 and 13, 14 feet tall. The thing was actually sitting in the corner of my room. I was like, Dad, there's a reptilian here, He comes running up, what, it's there, where, oh, obviously you can't see it. And, that was the incident. It took me to understand, even at the age of 4, that other people couldn't see what I saw. So if I kept on at this, of course, they're going to send you a psychiatrist, say you're nuts, and put you on some sort of medication. So when he'd gone, the thing was still there, looked pretty snarly. And you can always tell with these creatures because they're like fallen souls, they're there to manipulate, most of them. And it felt dark, and I think, this is not good. So, I kind of said, get out of my bedroom. It went. Oh, wow, that worked, and from that, I learned to manage them a little bit. And because, even the prayers we on the website, prayers are just a map of intent. It's a map of intent, like get out of my room, in a very strong manner. And so anyway, growing up, saw these things, and then kind of got into this place where the third dimensional world teaches you've got to be the best. And, of course, I had dyslexia really bad, so I couldn't spell very well. I was in the remedial class, even for maths, and I was brilliant at maths, but terrible at English. And being in England, it's the key instrument. If you're not good at English, you're remedial, you're useless, So anyway, eventually my father went to school and said, look, he can do the top group, bottom group math, and middle group maths quicker than most of the top group people can do it. So they put me in the middle group, which is better than remedial. And of course, that was a change. But when I went to what we call over here high school, it was secondary school then, someone flagged me, the teacher who first took me, he flagged me. He said, this guy's got dyslexia, and he called my father in. And after that, things change, and but even so, it's interesting because you kind of choose your parents coming down here, and my father wasn't the best. He used to shame you. And even when I left school, I did an apprenticeship, and they sponsored me to do a degree, and I was so excited that day. I said, yay, that's brilliant. So I've gone home, Dad, they sponsored me to do a degree. Oh, blimey, you're too thick to get a degree. And so, I thought, oh, right. And so I'm going to get one. And I got one. I'm going to get a master's. I got one of those as well. And, I've done PhDs and things like this with seminaries and done the research and things. But it just shows you that, somehow the parents probably you chose, instead of mollycoddling you, they made you feel the opposite and made you do things outside the box that maybe you wouldn't have done. So I thank him for that. He still shames me now. He thinks I'm nuts, which I take that as a compliment. Yeah, I'm nuts. Because if I was normal, I'd think, wow, what a crazy world we live in,
Well, I feel like, what is normal really, right? Like society says normal is this, like I feel like you said earlier, and I can't remember if it was on the interview, like recorded or not, but we all have these gifts, I think, right? Like, I feel like we're just so used to the five senses that we come here when we experience this, you call it a three-dimensional realm, this physical reality. I mean, that's how we experience it, through the sight, the feeling, the hearing, our senses. Like, that's why it's so sensitive, right? Like our lips, our nose, our taste buds, like because that's how we experience this. But if we like close down and go inside to the deeper parts of ourselves, we don't even know how to use that technology. Like we don't even know how, like, I'm just learning now after a greater part of a year to like experience meditation and like to stop thinking that I'm going crazy when I experience something, right? Like to stop judging it as, oh, it's just your imagination, right? Like the imagination is probably one of the greatest tools that we have, but we put it off as something that is lesser than our reality because we don't know how to experience it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I mean, your imagination, it's like, there are beings that, people put in fairy tales, that actually exist in different dimensions on other planets. And I think, the imagination does create reality. And, it's like you say, what's right or wrong? It's like, people taking the needly thing or not, is it right or wrong? And the answer is there's no right or wrong. That's your understanding and your perception of what the thing is, and do I ingest it in my body? And so, it's like my father, they've done it all, and, I haven't. He shames me like, you should do this, you should do that. And no, that's not my reality. And I told him, I said, there's no right or wrong. Your perception of your research and understanding is your perception. Mine's very different. But please don't shame me because, there's no right or wrong in this thing, about anything really. It's people's understanding, I think, of where they are and what they're doing in this either third dimensional world matrix or you're out of it, And I choose my life completely out of it, And
sure. Well, you went to the corporate world, right? Like you did that. I feel like you were successful in that, right? And then you lost it all. But I feel like in your story, you had made a promise to the larger consciousness that you would start using your abilities or your gifts towards healing or towards the greater good. Is that right?
Absolutely. And, I think when I was in the corporate world, I couldn't stand it. I was pretty high up in Philips Consumer Electronics, pretty high up at Marconi, did some huge projects, but couldn't stand going to work. And, oh God, it's a paycheck. I've got to go to, when you go to work, you come back, you're in the matrix, and you get a paycheck, does it cover the bills? For a lot of people, it doesn't. So, you're just in this recycling mode of stress because you can't pay your bills, earning money, going to the store, watching TV. And I didn't do that, of course, because I'm not interested in TV very much. But I think it's important to step out of that, if you're really going to make it, because if you don't, you're just going to live life in the matrix. If you step out, and step out means really get in a new place, getting people who love you around you, hold the space for you, don't shame you, who you can be raw, authentic, and honest with, and they share the same ideas. And, it's my perception now. I mean, we do thousands of healings a week. And, from what I can see is that because of the bifurcation, the separation in families, some of the families, well, I never want to see you unless you take a jab or unless you do this and that. That's not okay. If love comes down to a needly thing, then we've got a big problem. And my answer to them is always set your boundaries. It's if your mother's love's that fickle, then really it's no love at all. You need to learn to take a step back, set boundaries, and get in this really great space. And I've done it myself. I don't have people in my life who drag you and suck the life out of you. I have people who really hold you up and love you for who you are. And there's very few. And I think, the definition of blood's thicker than water, to me, doesn't cut the mustard nowadays, because a lot of starseed people who are born down here, they can be spliced at birth. So what does splicing mean? Well, you need enough DNA on some of the starseed families, like Arcturians, Melchizedek, not necessarily Palladians, but Andromedans. So some of these people who have come down to agree to come down, their mother has probably been abducted and they've either put eggs and sperm or just eggs in. And therefore they were born down here. The reason why they do that is because the soul will not interface into the body unless you have the right DNA and light body within the DNA. So that's an important point as well, I think.
Well, I have to be honest with you. I'm not too well versed in starseeds or that part of people's ideologies, right? Like, so like when you talk about, like, I obviously have heard about them, but I don't necessarily know a whole lot about that. Like I am very much into learning how to grow my consciousness and how to make it reach higher levels of consciousness for myself, so I can receive information or connect with that higher self. Out of body experiences are like something that I'm trying to achieve, and that, you know, bringing that awareness from this physical body to that energy body or whatever that may be. But so, like, when you say starseed, like, what is that?
Well, there's a certain group of people, and a lot of people who have been born down here to help at this time, and they've been born for the last 4,000 years. They've been sent here to learn, and then, you know, learn again to right now, because this is it. You know, this is the big transition, and they've been learning. So what does that mean? Well, you kind of volunteer to come down. So you get in God's queue. I'll volunteer. And they say, well, you know, don't forget the food is all hijacked, the water's hijacked, the air's hijacked, everything's hijacked. You know, you can get attachments, you can get abducted. Yeah, I'll do it. You know, and you get down here, and, you know, a lot of starseed people, I hear every day, I don't belong here. Are you sure they dropped me off at the right planet? And it's important to connect with your soul family, whoever that starseed family are. Maybe it's Palladian, maybe it's Arcturian. Because when you meditate with them, they're the guys who are going to really show you your gifts and give you downloads. So, and downloads actually is something where you don't realize you've got it until you need it. And suddenly you think, how do I know all this information? I mean, I know more about the anatomy of the body than most doctors, and yet, you know, I've not been a doctor and, you know, an MD, and I've never been a nurse, and yet, you know, I understand this because they've been showing me cause and effect. This is this, that's that, you know, and over a period of time, it was a learning experience. It was pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm. How do you receive, like, how do you heal? Do you see someone's aura? Do you see somebody's energy? Do you see, what does it look like?
I can actually look inside the body and see whether organs are sick, like if they look grey, and, you know, if there's cancer tumors, if there's blockages. Like, for example, a lot of people have blockages in the intestines at the moment. Why is that? Well, emotion from the heart bleeds down there and it paralyzes it. Now, if you get an attachment, we talk about attachment. If you look at Jesus' teachings, I'm not a Christian, but I do like Jesus' teaching. He talked about demonic entities. If they attach to you, then what happens is, like, Anunnaki draconians consider the abdomen, so abdomen gets bloaty for no reason. It paralyzes the intestines from the end of the rib cage down. So when you eat, as it gets further down, it backs up. You feel blah, you know. It also paralyzes the liver and the adrenals, so you feel exhausted. And it sends you negative thoughts as well, because it taps in the spinal column. So these things, you know, it's slightly outside the box, but they do attach, and Luciferian's the same. So there's different entity that can attach, that can really drag your vibration down. So it's important to rid yourself of those before you get a really clear channel, because then you can get, you know, it's my job here. I don't believe in gurus. I don't believe in anything like that. You are your own guru. You know, you're a sovereign being. So it's my job to help people get back to that sovereign place. Now, if you look at it, what's the biggest instrument that stops you? And that would be emotion. I mean, if you look at what's happening today, people are ingested emotion, hundreds of thousands of layers, and it drops your vibration. It makes you sick. So, you know, we have a fast track method of releasing emotion so that you can get your vibration up and get your energy level up to a place where you're leaping out of bed in the morning and excited for the day. But that also, of course, part of that is choosing what work you do. You know, what do you want to do? You know, do you want to go to a corporate system and get dragged down, or are you going to take a step back and say, I want to do my gifts? Now, for many people, they don't have the faith that if they do their gift, they'll have enough money. And I had the same. I mean, I always go back to a time when I went for this reading, 22 years ago or something. And I sat there, and this woman said, well, she said, you're going to go to America, you're going to get remarried, and you're going to live off donations. And, what? Can you tell me that again? Yeah, you know, you're going to get married and live off donations and go to America. And at the time, I thought, this is, you know, I didn't tell her that. I just went out and thought, this is no good. And I looked today, and the woman was absolutely spot on right. You know, it's exactly what I'm doing. So, but there's no timing in it, of course. But, you know, that was quite far outside my way of thinking when I was stuck in England, going to corporate systems. Now, you know, I realize and help people with the fact that having the faith to step out with your gift, you do get blessed every day for it, and God blesses you for sure.
Well, how do you find that gift, right? Like, so there's a ton of people listening right now that are kind of like that want to have a gift, right? Like, how do you help them develop it, or how do you even help them find it?
Well, normally I get them to find their own gift, but firstly, like what you're doing is getting into meditation, where into kind of transcendental meditation, where you really kind of add a body, you're connecting with a soul family of starseed people or guides or whatever, and they'll show you the way. It's really important to discover it for yourself, because so, how do you meditate? Well, okay, what you have to do is let the mind go. Oh, that's really very difficult to do, because most people, oh, hang on, I've got to do shopping tomorrow. I've got to do this and that, because life is so busy. I think what you have to do is get off the hamster wheel, release a ton of emotion. So you almost get like hippie-fi, where you're in a relaxed place, nothing matters. You start to feel your vibrations amazing. And when you're meditating then, you can let your mind go, and you don't want any chatter there, because then the thoughts and they'll speak to you through thought. It's telepathy, and from that, that's where they taught me about the healing. I don't use anyone else's modality, because that's their truth for what they do. That's their gift. Mine's different, and so I wanted to really learn how my gift works so that I could use it in the very best way possible.
Yeah, connect. Well, you're hearing thoughts. Like, is it so? Do you hear your own thoughts and your own words, or do you hear like? I guess it's kind of confusing, because then people think that they're just making it up.
Well, they do, but it becomes loud and clear. And there's another thing as well that can interfere with it, is that if you don't protect yourself and keep these things out, entities, once you've got rid of them, if you have any, once you keep them out, and and we have a prayer, it's called the 27 Esoteric Merkaba Field Prayer. It's on the website. And what it does is, it's probably the most powerful prayer down here, because the sacred geometry, creating that intent to put sacred geometry around you, high vibrational sacred geometry, will keep these things out. If you say that prayer or map of intent 3 times a day, that will keep the things out and allow you to be clear and also have a clear channel. Because if you start trying to talk to your beings off planet, they can interfere with that link, and get involved. And that's why a lot of readers and different people don't quite get the whole truth from the reading, because they're not tapping into that pure angelic beings. They're being manipulated by reptilian energy, so it's another thing that you've got to keep yourself absolutely clear.
So what was your mindset like when you were in the corporate world, right? Did you have an understanding of like what you do now? Like, was there a big aha moment? Like, did you develop into this philosophy that you have now, as far as getting in touch with your guides? Like, what was your mindset like back then?
It was very hamster wheel, mind chattered, because everything was really busy for the sake of being busy. Of course, when you go to a corporate system, people nowadays are doing probably 10 or 15 people's work in one day that, in 20, 25 years ago, there would be 10 extra people to do the work. And so they're really pushing you. Of course, you never get a second to yourself. And that's one thing I didn't enjoy, I think, if you evolved and, you're getting really spiritual, you need to give yourself that time to be able to get in your space, just to take stock and relax and let your mind go, so, and I talk to the Gizdet beings every day, all day, I'm in there 12 hours a day. That's actually one of the reasons why my wife won't let me get a motorcycle, because my concentration is not good enough,
Really?
Because, well, I'm in the ethers a lot, so it's difficult to stay down here and focused, and sometimes she talks to me and said, "You didn't hear what I say, did you?" Can you tell me again?
what do those conversations sound like? I mean, when you're up there in the ethers.
Well, they just talk to you about, what's going on. Some, maybe a client you had in the day, oh, you need to look at that, or you need to look at this. And I talk to them every day, because when I do healings, I put people in portals. So, and therefore, you talk to because that beings about, so, where's the liver at? Because how's the liver functioning? What percentage? Oh, it's 47% or it's 64%, because I can't tell just by a look at the liver. It's a liver, you know. Does it look a bit sick? Probably. Does it look paralyzed? Yeah, it looks a little gray, but I can't tell what, you know, percentage it's actually running at. So I always ask them, what percent? Oh, 47. Okay, so let's get the liver back up. And same with other things, you know, we look at the whole thing, and I'm talking to them day in, day out, you know, about different aspects of the healing, because I need to know percentages. I need to know how the person's doing and anything else we could do. And so it's kind of ongoing. And when you're in the ethers for 12 hours a day, when you come back down, it's really difficult to get grounded and focus, you know, on this third dimensional world. It's crazy, you know. So
did you ever have to do like evidential like experiments to kind of like show yourself that you were doing this?
Yeah. I did. And, you know, what's interesting is, I mean, we've had a lot of results. People have been back to hospitals. And, for example, aneurysms. Why do you get an aneurysm? Why does your artery bulge out? Well, neurotoxins that are in the body weaken the artery and it just bulges out. So we use a very thick energy, paste it on it. It actually recreates tissue, and the aneurysm's gone. And people have gone back, they've scanned it. Well, where's the aneurysm gone? This is not normal. And, you know, like osteoporosis, osteopenia, you know, loss of bone density. Why does that happen? Well, if the parathyroid, you know, behind the thyroid gets paralyzed because of emotion, you leach calcium out your bones. And again, we've used that energy to paste on the bones, and it's got them back to, I remember a lady with severe osteoporosis of the hips, osteoporosis in the whole body. I worked on her for about 4 months, and she went back for a DEXA scan, and they said, wow, your hips are mild osteopenia, and the rest of it's back to normal density. What are you doing? You know, and so we've got results for that. But you know, I've proved to myself, I think, when I was bankrupt and, you know, struggled, I mean, I lived out of a car. I spent some time, I managed to get an apartment that was paid by the government because I had no money. So, you know, they paid rent, and, you know, we got social security, whatever, for a few years. And I tested a lot of things out. Some extraordinary things could happen. And I think sometimes you need to test things out for yourself. Would I do it in front of people? No, because, you know, it's not a circus act. It's really a confirmation to yourself that you can do these things, you know. We vibrated the molecular structure of water, put your hand through a wall, you know, various things that, you know, could I do them now? I don't know. I've not tried, because once you've done these things and you can prove to yourself that you have the mindset and the power to do them, then you're good to go. Then you've got the complete faith that the God realm, you know, whoever you believe is the God realm. I mean, I talk about God, Goddess, prime creator of all it is, which is the creator of all this. And then you've got other beings, light beings, you know, angelic beings like the Melchizedek beings, and, you know, Arcturians who you work with down here to help people heal, you know. So
yeah, no, I think you're right on. Like, right. So I have this open-minded skepticism, right? Like everything, I have to experience it for myself because it is my own experience. So like my experiments with consciousness, right? Like whether it's remote viewing or healing or whatever, right? Like it has to be my own experience. I can't have somebody else tell me about it, right? Like, because it's not that, you know, it's not their experience, it's mine. And then when you tell somebody that, right, you present the evidence, like it all it does is make them try to argue against your evidence that you've garnered for yourself. So it's like they just end up muddying the waters a bit. So it's like, that's not right, blah blah blah, and then you know, you're kind of start doubting yourself. But the proof is in like you actually doing it and seeing it for yourself. That's all that matters, really. It's like,
oh yeah,
you know?
Once you're confident, it's getting that inner strength and confidence, getting back to that sovereign self where you really believe in yourself and you believe in your gifts. But it takes a while because, like you say, you got to really try the gifts out. I mean, you know, my gift is not painting at all. If I went to a gallery and started painting, they said, get out and don't come back because it's not my gift. Am I a master chef? No. I mean, I love cooking and I'm good at it, but I need a recipe. Don't tell anybody, but I need a recipe. You know, I'm not one of these people who can just walk in and you get like 4 ingredients. So you can make something like, oh, wow, that's off the charts, because that's not my gift. You know, everyone's got different gifts and it's all healing. You know, even food is healing, in my opinion. Sure. You know, like a painting, if someone creates a masterpiece painting, when you look at it, wow, the energy of it's healing in itself. It brings you joy, and joy is healing. So yeah, everyone's got different gifts, but to me, the gift. If people are looking for the gift, you've got to look at something that you don't even have to try. Like piano playing. There's 4-year-olds who can play the piano better than a concert pianist at the age of 4. That's truly a God gift, So I think you have to look at something that's just natural to you. You don't even have to try. You just basically do it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? Like you just, and again, people are just so used to listening to other people, and you can't blame them, because we come here and we don't know. We have these belief systems. We have society that tell us things. We have these religious dogmas. We have all of these experiences happening at once. And you're just kind of programmed. You're just kind of indoctrinated with these beliefs, and you just walk around. And then, do you ever question it? No, not really. I mean, if everything's good, your comfort level's good, like, why would you question anything? It's when you start getting older and you're like looking around, you're like, man, it just seems like this circle of like ongoing suffering. And it's like, is this what, some people wake up and say, is this what I'm here for? Right. Like, and you start looking at different points of view, different authors, different philosophers, and you're like, man, maybe they're on something. Really. I mean, what is it they're talking about? What did Aristotle talk about? What did Plato, Socrates, all these guys start talking about? Know thyself. What does that mean? What does even know thyself? And a lot of people are like, go inward. And you want to know, how do I go inward? And then you start learning about meditation. You start doing your meditation techniques, and you start doing transcendental meditation. And you're sitting in your chair and you almost fall out of your chair, and you're like, an hour went by and it feels like 5 minutes. And it's like, what is that?
Oh yeah. It's amazing, because when you go the other side, there's no time. So it's like, at night, a lot of people, starseed people in particular, but a lot of people go off planet. The soul leaves the body on an umbilical cord. You go and do stuff. You come back, you wake up, you think, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. You feel more tired in the morning than you do in the evening before you went to bed. And the reason is because you might have done 3-5 years work in that night, learned a lot. But of course, when you wake up, you don't know, because you don't need the information until you need it. And when you need it, it's completely there, and I've seen that so much.
Mm-hmm. But the problem is like when people do that, when they experience that larger consciousness system, or they experience the ethereal realm, or they experience out of body, they don't know what to do with it. They immediately, the analytical mind wants to immediately put labels on it and say, this is what you're experiencing, or what is it? I don't know I cannot compute this experience. I don't know what this is. You're crazy. You need to go see a doctor to get a prescription to numb this, because what you're computing right now makes no sense to this experience that I'm feeling right now in this reality. So a lot of people get confused with, trying to process that information from right now, this desk, like this right here. Oh, this is my reality. But when they experience things, even in their dreams, the body drops away, and now you're experiencing consciousness in its purest, at the purest form. That is what you essentially are. And then when you have like these documented out of body experiences, or you have these, this psi phenomena, or you go into your imagination and you start, talking to other entities or beings, or, people that have passed over a transition, and they're giving you information that you could have not possibly known while they were here. And you fact check that information, and it comes out to be true, and you're shaking your head, you're like scratching it. You're like, how is this possible? Like, this is people, the scientific community is telling me that this cannot happen, because this is not causal, this is not cause and effect. This is something outside of time and space. And it's, people don't know how to deal with it, because it's not what we've been taught. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it's true, actually. And you look at, if you look at schools all over the world, they don't really teach very much. I mean, history is all, not quite correct, especially over here. And, they just teach stuff that, most people would never use. If they created schools to actually discover your gifts and give you the instruments and the backing to be able to believe in yourself, a lot of these gifted people would really move forward. But of course, instead, they'll prescribe something like largatural or some antidepressant or something to numb the pineal gland down. It's always based on fluoride, and and they just become numb. The senses disappear, and it's really sad. I mean, yeah, I think I'd love to see schools for people who want to do their spiritual gifts, so they could really just focus on them without the stress of having to do things they don't enjoy.
Materialism. It's the we're post-industrial age here. We have materialism, and people think that the more that I obtain, the more that I'll be happy, and the more possessions that I have, the more or the higher I'll rise in society. And when they get to that point where it's not true, right? Like it's not the truth. It is actually more things you have. I feel like the more lost you are, really. And the job that you have, the corporate job, right? Like climbing that ladder, you get to the top. I mean, I don't know if that ladder ever stops, but if you ever get to that metaphorical top, you look down, you're like, for what, right? Like I've wasted a lot of my time trying to get to this, to the top of this, and for what? Empty relationships or stress or cancer or health problems. And
what's the point?
What's the point, right? Like I'm here.
I'll tell you, when I went bankrupt, I had a Bentley, and I was so embarrassed because, I went bankrupt. Someone let me borrow an apartment for 4 weeks. I had no money for food, nothing. I had this Bentley in the garage that I couldn't even afford to put gas in, and I was just embarrassed. Why on earth did I buy this thing? It's a very expensive bit of tin on wheels, But what was interesting, I had this Bentley watch I bought with it, and it cost me about, I don't know, £18,000, like $25,000, whatever. And I had no food at all this one day, and I thought, watch or food? Food wins. So I went down to this gentleman he was a Jewish gentleman in Manchester, and he, yes, my boy. I said, I've got this watch, it was a Breitling Bentley special edition, whatever it was. So I gave it to him. He said, well, it is authentic. I said, yeah, it's the receipt. Well, I need to check it myself. Come back in 2 hours. My friend will come in and take the back off. Anyway, I went back. Yeah, it's authentic. He said, I'll give you £1,500, food or watch. Oh, food wins. Yeah. And I took it, because at that time I'd let go of everything. And it taught me a lot. And it was important to lose everything, because I don't put anything on stuff now. Stuff is just stuff. If it's there, thank you, God, for the blessing. But if it's not there, who cares? I put so much emphasis now on it's about people and community and family around you, starseed family, or soul family, as we call it. I think that's really important. Get back to your soul family,
Sure. But I mean, you're in this probably the darkest night of soul, right? Story, right? Like you have lost everything. You're trading things in. You can't afford food until you sell your watch. How long did that progress, or degress?
It lasted about 3 years, but it's interesting. The first education I had is somebody sent me to Belize, said there'll be food and, water there and whatever, So I went over to Belize to do some healings and, be amongst some people, and there was no food. Okay. So now, obviously being powerless victim at the time, because I wasn't that strong then. And I thought, well, I'm not going to ask anybody for anything. So I didn't, Got to day 10, getting pretty hungry. No one gave us food. Got to day 15, getting a little bit tired now, like exhausted because my energy level was dropping because no food. So I got to day 21 and I said, I've had enough of this. I said, okay, dear God, I command to get food and I get it right now. And I thank you, God. And I put some real power into it. Within 15 minutes, the most dodgy chap in Belize, he's coming around like this and looking around. He said, Chris, look, I'm going to give you $50 Belize. Don't tell anybody because they'll think I'm weak. Okay, well, thank you. Bless you, This is 15 minutes after manifesting, and it's the guy that you would never expect to give anything out, And $50 Belize in US is probably at the time, was about $15. And that lasted me 2 weeks. And I went for a meal that night, after 21 days of food, and I couldn't even eat it because my stomach had shrank so much, I had like 2 or 3 spoonfuls, but I was so grateful for that. And it taught me after that, I found that I always had enough. I flew back. I came to America because I met this lady who asked me to stay with her in Hollister, which we're in now. And I flew back to Heathrow and I didn't have any money. And I thought, how am I going to get out of the parking lot? And, instances happened where some money was put in my account. I had enough money to pay the bill. It was always there. If you had the faith, the instruments that you need, money or otherwise, is always there.
How long? What was the longest that you went without food? Was it 21 days?
Yeah, I had several instances like 7 days, 10 days, and I just couldn't find enough money to get food. I remember the 7-day one. It was interesting because the guys let me in he asked me to stay in his house to look after it. There was no food. Great. But he left like 36 pence, like 40 cents, Oh, so I went to the local, supermarket, Tesco's is like Walmart, whatever. And the only thing I found for that was one like bun, like a bread bun, So I bought this thing and I cut it in 7. I just ate a little piece of that every single day, So it got me over. At least I had some food to focus on. But 21 days is a long time to go without food. You have to really be careful. I don't recommend anyone doing it,
Mm-hmm.
But it did teach me a lot. I needed the lesson to understand manifestation, because sometimes you've got to get to that precipice where, okay, I've had enough of this. I'm doing food, and suddenly you've got that extraordinary power of intent to create the reality.
Did that teach you like that you could like survive on your own, right? Like you didn't need to take a job just for the money, that you could go explore the world,
Yeah, I mean, I went to India, really interesting because, I didn't know much about India, and I was going to Macklin, where the Dalai Lama is, and I was going to meet him, but in fact, when I got there, he was in the US. Well, I'm not going to meet him this time, but that was really interesting because I got on a bus, and I think it was US $1 and maybe 20 cents to go 16 hours from the Punjab region to there, And when you see these things about people standing up on the bus, it was like standing. They all had turbans on. It was pretty stinky. And I fell asleep standing up. When I woke up, oh my God. Oh, yeah, this is where I am. It was amazing. It's amazing. It's good to have those experiences. I wouldn't want to do it now, probably not. But I enjoyed the experience. I always look at every single, and that's what everyone should look at. Going bankrupt, marriage broke up, all the things happen for a reason. And I think it's always a blessing. You just don't quite see it at the time, I remember being in the middle of Manchester with no food, and I was kind of in tears. I said, okay, God, what's going on? I don't understand, I had 2 like Walmart bags, one with a couple of shirts in and something else. I've been working for 21 years, lost several million pounds, and I don't understand it. And it was clear as day. They said, it's the right time. What do you mean it's the right time? It's the right time. You'll see. And by goodness I did. But, I didn't see right then. It just took me a while to, transmute the whole life into a new form of life and a new way of thinking. Mm-hmm. And it was such a blessing. I would never want to get rid of that experience, because it makes you into the amazing person you are today.
Sure. So. Yeah. Now I'm writing this. I'm doing some journaling recently, like on Sundays, and I'm going back to my parts of my life where in the moment that I was just kind of like really on the outs, right? Like just kind of like just upset with how my circumstances were, or why is this happening to me? Like, this isn't fair. Like, I'm a good guy. But then as I am writing and I'm looking back at that circumstance or that situation, like I'm now finding the gifts in that moment, right? Like there's gifts that we're just not conscious to because of the emotion or the distraction of us, like being, either too caught up in the drama or just, we're just not able to see it. Right. Like, I mean, think about the gifts that you had, right? Like the gift of freedom, right? Like to know that you can go and be bankrupt or broke or living out of your car and not eat for 21 days. But you're not going to that job anymore. You're not going, to that corporate job where you're miserable. You're broke, but you're not eating for 21 days. But then you say, all right, you have this realization of, I have this strong intent to create something. And I, not like you're testing God, but you're kind of testing God, but you're saying you're testing the universe maybe, or you're testing this idea of manifestation. And you say, I need to eat. I need some food. Help me out, please, God. And within 15 minutes, you're fed. I mean, that kind of gives you confidence to say, all right, well, what else can I do? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I remember, in England, I was driving around one night. I went to the A1M on the motorway. You could stay there for 2 hours, and I had nowhere to stay. I was kind of half living out the car. Sometimes I stayed with people. And this one night, I thought, there was a motel type thing there. So I drove to it and went outside, and there's a guy outside. So I got out and just hung around a bit. And the guy came in, "What's your story?" I explained to him. He goes, "What, you do healing?" I go, "Yeah." "Tell you what, I'll get you a hotel room if you do a healing one." Okay, so we did it. I got a hotel room for that. And lots of little instances like that happened where, it's such a blessing. Mm-hmm. And now I think to me, being right up there and getting there is really experiencing gratitude on a new level, because we're taught like get a gratitude stone and, 5 minutes. Okay, God, look, I'm grateful for my stuff. I'm grateful for my wife, car, whatever. That's it, we're done because I don't have the time. Gratitude isn't like that, To me, gratitude, you're grateful every second of minute of every day. I mean, I just smile sometimes and say, wow, I can do this work. We're slam busy, we're booked about 3 or 4 months out. I must be doing something right because the healings work. And, and I thank God every day, every second of every day, because it's a way of being. It's a way of feeling. You know what I mean? It's not just, well, God, we're going to give you 5 minutes. That doesn't cut the mustard. You've got to get into this surrender, gratitude, like wow thing,
Sure. Yeah,
and it's amazing.
I can get with that. Like, I can definitely get with that. The gratitude is definitely something that pulls you back into that feeling of like higher than your self vibration of like you see it. Yeah. It anchors you back into the moment where you can.
But you also feel like comforted, in some way, because the gratitude and all the beautiful things that are happening. And when I started this ministry, it was called Chris Macklin. The Global Enlightenment Project is a project of it. When I started it, build it, they'll come, they said. So opened the office, opened the door. 2 months went by, nobody's coming, and the odd person came in that we knew, and then one day I said, well, God, why aren't people coming? It's within, get out there. Oh, okay. So, and the first place I ever went to was Unity Church in St. Petersburg in Florida. So I go there thinking, well, it's their bookshop, It was slammed. And in fact, people were banging on the door to go, why do they want to come and see me? It was amazing. But, I did a deal with God. So look, God, I don't like money side. I don't like the accounts, don't like the sales, don't like anything like that. You do that, I'll do the work. And they said, okay. And ever since that, kind of deal with God where, look, can you take care of this? Because it's not my deal. It's just happened, and now we're always busy. And, I get really excited about it because it's just amazing. The change in people, that's what really excites me. Like, oh, my cancer's gone, my this, that, and the other's gone, my Lyme disease. We have a new protocol for stripping out Lyme disease, HIV, AIDS, Agent Orange, and Morgellons. It strips out the body completely. And, it's a 20-week program and people are just blown away by it. So, things like that really excite me. Nothing else does. I've got a Chevy truck, so what? It's just a truck. Mm-hmm. We've got a ministry house. If we didn't have it tomorrow, as long as we've got somewhere to operate. But the IT equipment we have a lot of IT, very expensive equipment, so we can make sure that the stuff is stable and it works. That's part of the ministry. That's the key tool, really, to be able to do your work. So, but apart from that, nothing else really matters.
Has your practice or your healing? I mean, you sound like you're getting pretty tech savvy over there with the IT stuff. Are you using IT stuff during the healings? Like, are you able to use that for upgrading your healing?
Well, I work remotely. I never have anyone in the office for my own protection and their protection. It's just better, because it's all about trust. And, if someone has to go out and say, well, he touched me inappropriately or he did something, and, game over. So I always do it by remote, either by phone. We use Skype, believe it or not. We pay $50 a month and you can phone anywhere in the world. So I use Skype for that. If they've got Skype, great. If not, then you can phone anywhere in the world. And we do it all by phone, remote viewing, phone, and everything else. I do the sessions 3 times a week. We have sessions 3 times a week, like Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, where we do like by donation. So we get a lot of people on it, because they don't have any money. And I always tell them, never shame yourself. I've been there, got the t-shirt on this one. So, and they come on and, it just helps them get into that space of being able to manifest. But we use Zoom for that, So yeah, we get fast processor stuff so that, we get the streaming right and, everything else. So it's,
Sure.
To me, investment in equipment, don't ever, again, if you're going to open a spiritual company, in my opinion, don't ever put it down and get the cheapest thing, because you're going to need to replace it. I started off with that, and the computers we had lasted about 4 or 5 months, and they got so full, the things were taking 30 seconds to move the calendar by one day, and I thought, this is no good.
Sure.
So, we've always kept up and, invested God's money in the work of God, especially, effectively. So
did you ever did you ever doubt what your journey was? Like, did you ever feel like, man, I just don't know. I can't see the end result of this.
No, I always knew I'd do the healing. Didn't know how it would happen. I knew I felt like it'd be big, but I said, okay, let's just see, and I just went with the flow. I think the biggest thing for me was surrender, surrender to God. God's got my back. Whatever they want me to do, they're going to get me to do it. And whatever energy exchange there is, then it'll be there. One of the things I learned early on, though, is when we first started doing healings, we used to kind of get a couple of letters, a tomato, and maybe a carton of eggs. And I thought, can't pay the bills with this stuff. But at the time, I hated money, hated it, with a passion, because, of course, you've just gone bankrupt. So anyway, this pastor from Unity Church sat me down one day. She goes, she said, so you got to look at it, if you get a lettuce and a couple of tomatoes for healing, can you go to the local company, the electric company, and pay your bill? No. She said, why not? Well, they don't accept lettuce and tomatoes. She said, what do they accept? Well, the dollar bill, of course. And she said, but what's the difference? It's all energy. It's all exchange. And, I sat back and thought about it. I said, I know, you're right. But it's funny how people still criticize it. Even for me, even though we do healings by donation, if you've got no money, you still do it. There's always people who criticize, like, well, how dare you charge for healings? And, Jesus never did. I said, well, there's a couple of things about Jesus. He got free transport. He got free beds for the night. He also converted water to wine, so he got free tipples. So, he's good to go. With this day and age, you can't do that because it's all monetary led. And so you've got to have the correct exchange, be it the dollar bill or whatever, to be able to pay the bills. And, that's when it, took off, and I realized, okay, we've got to charge, some money for it, And I think, moreover, if people get things for free, one thing I've learned about people is they don't really take it seriously. If they have to pay something for it, they put a value on it. Oh, yeah, okay, I'm going to really show up for this healing. And that's another thing. Sadly, in this third dimensional world, it seems led by money,
Mm-hmm.
It's what it is, so.
Yeah, well, exactly. You're exactly right. It's just energy. It's a form of energy.
Of
me giving that energy to you, whether it's like me being thankful and grateful, I'm still giving you that energy of thankfulness, right? that of love, right? So it's all relative.
Absolutely. For example, if Walmart had a really top television, whatever it is, so they've got this really expensive television, $2,500. Okay, we're going to put it on special offer for $10. People go in there, nah, that can't be any good for $10. They go and buy the expensive one at the back, when actually, it's a deal. But again, people wouldn't value it. $10, yeah, you can't get a TV for that, So it's interesting how people value things at monetary, and I don't, I always look what's behind it. I think it's really important.
I think it's awesome, man. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. How can people find you?
Yeah, if you want to do some healings or just help to get, I'm here to get back to your sovereign self and get that passion going, with your gifts. But, if you want to go to the website, globalenlightenmentproject.com, we've got a lot of instruments to help with ADD, OCD, the brain soothes. We've got meditations. They're guided, but it's a start, and We've also got guided meditation, release emotion. There's a whole slew of things. You can come and do one-to-ones. You can do specialized groups. You can do the generic groups 3 times a week by donation. If you have no money, do that. And of course, if you've got a lot of serious things like autoimmune disorders caused by stealth pathogens, we have the protocol to strip those out. So it's all there, So
I love it. Well, Christopher, I can't thank you enough, sir, for coming on the show. This has been fabulous. I love the mission. I love what you're doing. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, Trey. I mean, I love it. We're dedicated to this. One thing I would tell you is it kind of becomes a way of life. You know what I mean? It's not a job. It's just what you do. And sometimes, you can do stuff one day and be busy, and next day you've got some interviews, and next day you're doing something else. And it's just, it doesn't feel like work. It's just a passion and a way of life. And I think if you can get to that place where it becomes a way of life, you've cracked life. You really have.
Way of life. Still trying to crack that code, my friend. That's for sure.
You'll get there. You're a warrior, Trey. You're a warrior.